The Cape Cad is the second episode of the fifth season of Cheers. This is, of course, directed by the wonderful James Burrows, and there will be spoilers from now as I discuss what happens in this episode. And it's an absolute delight, but we are starting to get a look at Diane slowly becoming more and more unhinged. I don't want to talk too much about that, because I don't want to give away too much of what happens with the character in the future or going forward, but certainly with this episode, we start to see her acting in a way that's maybe even slightly more peculiar than she already does. And I will give examples when we get there. But this one starts off from the previous episode. The previous episode ended in Cheers with Diane telling Sam that she's working at Cheers again because he will come around to the fact that he loves her and he will propose to her, and this time she will say yes. And we have a fun little exchange between Diane and Woody. And then Sam tries to tell Diane that he doesn't love her, but as Diane points out, he just proposed to her twice. So clearly he must love her, because you wouldn't propose to somebody twice if you didn't love them. Diane is deliriously happy through pretty much the entire episode. It's an absolute delight to see Shelley Long just being so bubbly and happy and adorable. And I love Diane in this episode. I love Diane in every episode, but she's very, very happy, and it's an absolute joy to experience. Carla comes into Cheers with a box of, well, one cat, as she thought, but it turns out the cat is having kittens. As Carla points out, as soon as it became a Tortelli, it became pregnant. She's very pleasant to Diane, well, relatively pleasant, and she said to Diane, welcome back, kind of through gritted teeth, and my first thought was she's being rather nice to Diane, nice for Carla, and even Diane points it out to Carla, and we have a lovely exchange between Diane and Carla. Diane is still very, very happy. Sam is explaining he's about to leave for Cape Cod. He gets a phone call from Rhonda, his date, and she's actually phoned to cancel. So Sam is able to find somebody at the last minute, and Diane overhears this, and he tells her, and I quote, I have somebody even better waiting in the wings. And Diane says in the most adorable way, I know, me. It is just the cutest thing ever. I absolutely love her. We then, interestingly, get the exterior shot of the hotel. This is actually the Kelly House in Oak Bluffs. I did Google it. And it's unusual for us to get an exterior shot of anywhere other than Cheers. As the show progresses, we do get more and more of that because, well, bigger budgets, bigger locations, and bigger set designs. And obviously having that exterior establishes where we are. Majority of the rest of the episode is in this hotel or B&B or whatever it is, and Sam is there with his date Vicki, played by Brenda Strong, and I think it's fair to say that nobody would have expected what happens next to happen, and that is Diane turning up. There we have the first kind of unhinged thing that she did. Following Sam all the way there is not appropriate. It's not a sensible thing to do. But nevertheless, she turns up, and while she's out of the room, Vicki actually gets a phone call, and her grandmother is ill. Unfortunately, she has to leave. And Sam and Vicki go upstairs. He's going up to help her pack, and Diane comes back into the room. Obviously, Sam doesn't know that Diane finds out about this, but Diane does overhear that Vicki is leaving, and she laughs. And there we have another somewhat unhinged response to the situation. Laughing that Vicki has to leave is, again, not really appropriate. And she decides to have some fun with this, because she phones up Sam in his room, and not sure how she got the number of his room, as I'm pretty sure you're not meant to give out guests' extension numbers without their permission, but nevertheless, she gets the hotel room number and phones him up and says she wants to apologise to Vicki. She knows Vicki's not there. We, the viewer, know that Vicki isn't there. Sam doesn't know that Diane knows, and he kind of pretends that she is there, and Diane decides that she'll just have to come up. She'll just have to come up to the room and apologise in person because she was worried. She made Vicki feel uncomfortable, and we have this beautifully executed mad dash around the room as Sam tries to unmake the room and make it look like he and Vicki have been thrashing around in it and doing goodness knows what with room service, and really just making it seem like Vicki is there. But that's not going to be enough. he opens the door to put the room service plates out and basically kidnaps these two other guests and says he'll give them $50 if they go into the bathroom and make some noises that a woman would make while she's getting ready in the bathroom, obviously to make it seem like Vicki is in there. Diane comes into the room and she sits down in this rocking chair and starts rocking back and forward. Now that in itself is not necessarily unhinged, but rocking back and forth, along with everything else that Diane has been doing, definitely helps to just give this air of uncertainty regarding her mental state. And obviously in this one episode it's not too bad, but we know how fragile Diane can often be. And then we briefly cut back to Cheers for one of the best scenes ever. I watched it, I'm not joking, I watched it 6 times just now. I'd seen it before, but I watched it just now 6 times because I couldn't stop laughing at it. Cliff and Carla are actually having a conversation, which in itself very unusual. And Cliff is saying he's surprised Carla managed to get rid of the kittens quite so quickly. And we'll ignore the fact that kittens definitely aren't ready to leave their mother the very weekend that she's given birth. But nevertheless, she's managed to get rid of the kittens because, and I quote, giving a beer away with each kitten really did the trick. Immediately, without missing a beat, cut to Norm coming back from the back room with so many kittens. He's got a beer in one hand. He's got 3 kittens in his right arm. He's got 2 kittens in his left arm. Actually, one is initially in his arm and the other is on his shoulder. But as the camera cuts to him, that kitten falls from his shoulder onto his arm, and it's so, so cute. I'd love to see the outtakes for that. I would love to see them. And then as he walks off towards the main door, we see he has 2 kittens in his pocket. They're just sitting there kind of looking around, and it's amazing. It's Norm, it's kittens, it's hilarious. And as I said, I watched it I think 5 or 6 times just now, and it's just absolutely fantastic. Then we go back to Cape Cod, and Sam and Diane are both alone having dinner, and they apologise to each other. And mostly it's Diane apologising to Sam. And Sam doesn't want to eat alone. So they decide to eat together, and eventually, actually pretty quickly, they decide the only thing they can do is go to bed. But Diane says if they're going to sleep together, it has to mean something. And Sam doesn't think that should be the case. So Diane initially says, okay, we'll figure out what it means afterwards. And then Sam plays a trick on her by pretending that he needs to think it over, and he doesn't let that linger for too long, but unfortunately it was long enough for the moment to pass for Diane. It kind of reignited in her the thought that she needed to think it over. And that's how we basically end things. The waiter comes out and makes a a pretty good remark to Sam about how that's the second woman to have walked away from Sam that weekend. And he does seem quite defeated. And it's a delightful episode. And Diane is just adorable. The kittens are adorable. Things are definitely changing. Changing with Sam and Diane, changing with Diane's disposition, changing with Carla. There are a lot of subtle shifts with season 5. But again, I'll say no more until we get further into the season. But the Cape Cad is a delightful episode, very cute, very adorable. We'll always, always love Norm and the kittens. It is an absolute joy.